Hi, I am Boris from Boredom Sated.
I'm Jonathan from Boredom Sated. Today we are going to continue our creature comparison video series. We're going to talk about something a little different. We've gone with the big dragon, big angry dragon. We've gone with the big angry demon. So let's go with something a little on the good side.
So today we're doing the Solar, which are pretty much the archangels in both the D&D and Pathfinder 2 uh, Beastry books.
So the Solar is basically the most powerful angel, like we did the Baelor is basically the most powerful demon before you get to demon gods. This is the most powerful angel before you get to the angel, um, before you get to the regular gods. The Solars are, at least in 5th edition, the Solars are godlike in glory and power. They are the forces of good that show up against cosmic threats. Each god generally has one, which is their steward. And there's a few others that are around that are doing quiet contemplation, waiting for their need. They can detect lies, they can do all sorts of ridiculous fun things, and they are literally what you would think of when you think of a giant, angry, lawful good angel.
Right,
He's
and
big, angry.
same
He's got
thing
a
in the
flaming sword.
Pathfinder.
He's got big angelic wings.
Yes, and the same thing in the Pathfinder 2. They are the right hand of all the good deities and champions, cause benefit and aid the entire world in the way of goodness.
Yes. So solars are usually not something you're going to fight. Solars are usually something that you will bring in to help you fight against demon gods or things like that. A wish spell often can get you a solar to come to your aid. We've done that, I think, once in one of our previous games. It's
Yes.
ridiculous and can be a lot of fun. So, there's not a lot of history behind solar because it's not a word that was specifically used in most connotations. Um, so we're just going to say it's basically like an archangel and just move forward into the differences between them in D&D and Pathfinder.
Although in Pathfinder 2 book, it does put Archangel in brackets.
Okay, so in Pathfinder 2 they are using archangel, whereas in D&D they don't make that specific value because there's going to be people who complain and we don't want to get into that.
Yes.
So the difference between the Pathfinder Solar and the D&D Solar are many. Well, not actually, they're not really that many. There's a couple of minor differences. They are both very strong, as the Pathfinder 2 Solar is CR21, the D&D Solar is CR20 or 21, and the Pathfinder is CR23. The Pathfinder one has a couple of fun abilities. The Solar in D&D, though, I will go into first, and then we'll talk about the differences. So
Yes.
the main thing that the Solar does in D&D is it has radiant angelic weapons. Any weapon it touches becomes angelic. It adds 6d8 radiant damage to any attack it makes. That's a lot of damage when it comes to 5th edition. So its basic attack is 4d6 plus 8 because it's big and strong, and it's a large-sized creature with a large-sized weapon. But when you add 68 to it, that becomes devastating. Now you're looking at hits that do 40 points of damage on average, and that's pretty high. The other major thing that it does that's different, at least, is the legendary actions. It's a legendary creature. It gets legendary actions. It can teleport. It can do radiant and fire damage around it in a circle, which is just amazing. And it has a blind attack. But the problem with the blind attack is that it's not, the DC on it's kind of low. It has spell casting, which a lot of our high level creatures have not had, which is nice in my opinion. And it's got some pretty decent ones. It can commune and it can resurrect. Resurrection 3 times per day is pretty solid. The other thing that, of course, you need to remember, and these things are the common things between them, are the slaying longbow, which basically says that if a creature has 100 hit points or fewer, it must succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw or die. Again, the Constitution saving throw on that seems really low. I think it might be an error in the book, but either way, that's really powerful. And there's 2 ways to think of it. One, if the creature starts with 100 hit points or less, or 2, if the creature currently has 100 hit points or less. One way is devastating. The other way is good at taking out minions.
Right. Right.
The other thing that it's famous for, and again, both Solars have, is the Flying Sword ability. Flying Sword is what it's called in 5th edition. It basically has the ability to control its weapon in Pathfinder 2. Boris will explain in a moment. So the Solar can release its greatsword and basically use it to, or use a bonus action to have it fly 50 feet and make an attack against someone. So the sword would basically just fly at someone, make an attack, and come right back to them, which is a really powerful ability. So the Solar has a good armor class, has a very fast, it has a fly speed of 150. It's got decent hit points. For what it is and for its CR, it is very good, very strong, and definitely something I wouldn't want to fight. I would prefer to have it on my side, and I actually have had one on my side for fights that I've done in 5th edition, and we absolutely needed it.
Yes. So on the Pathfinder side, it's pretty much very similar. It has more divine innate spells than the D&D, but that is standard. Pathfinder creatures are usually more magical. It does have the same animated sword. The arrow mortality is a little bit weaker. You have to have 75 or fewer hit points, and you drop to 0. And you have to, the Solar has to critical you for that effect to be. So it's a much difficult.
Now, the one really good thing about that is there is no saving throw. But the bad thing is it has to crit, and you have to be at 75 or less.
Right. So that makes it a little bit weaker. The good or radiant damage bonus is only 2d6 for the Pathfinder, which is really what takes away from the overall comparison strength within each system. And the interesting thing about the Solar and the Pathfinder 2 is it does have regeneration 20, but it also has a weakness to evil of 25, which the Solar in D&D does not, but I think they balance each other out, because most likely the Solar is going to be fighting an evil creature, so you're still have a weakness of 5 overall.
Yeah, and the damage. No, actually, if you look, the resistance, the regeneration is shut off by being evil.
Yeah.
So if you're fighting something evil, it basically doesn't have regeneration or resistance. The Solar in 5th edition has resistant to radiant, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical weapons, or radiant, and then the non-magical weapon stuff, it's immune to charm, exhaustion, frightened, and poison. So it's not exactly completely worthless on that front. And it also, of course, has, just like almost all legendary creatures, has magic resistance, so it gets advantage on all saving throws versus magic.
Right.
Now, the one cool thing that they did in 5th edition is the Solar knows if it hears a lie, which is very fun. I really like also the buff that you get in Pathfinder 2. It has an aura basically that gives people bonuses against AC versus evil creatures. So it really is there to help the other people fight the evil creature more than it is to fight it by itself.
Yes, agreed. And I really wish the Solar and Pathfinder would have that lie detection, because certain demons would instantly be in pain every time they talk to a Solar.
Yeah, but okay, here's the problem with that. If you do those two fighting against each other, it's just not fair. It's just not fair.
I know, but it's just a fun situation.
Anyway. So overall, both creatures are very strong. They are very high CR. The honest biggest thing that we didn't even mention about the Pathfinder one is how high all of its saves are, and its plus to hit is, and its AC is. That's what makes it so tough. Honestly, my problem with the Pathfinder 2 version of the Solar is it does feel like kind of a generic creature comparatively. It's got a bunch of spell casting. It's got a couple of basic fun abilities here and there. And it hits like a truck, and it's got good AC, and it's got really high pluses to hit.
Yep.
But it doesn't have that other stuff. I mean, usually D&D has about the same. It has much less extra flavor to it than the Pathfinder 2 creature does. And in this case, it doesn't. They have like the same amount of flavor. You've got a little bit of extra fun flavor with the AC and the regeneration in Pathfinder 2. but you've got the legendary actions in D&D. So overall, they're about equal in my mind, which makes D&D that much better because they don't put as much effort into their creatures as Pathfinder 2 does. So comparatively, I think the D&D creature in this case is actually better.
I agree to, especially where the radiant damage does so much more with the 6d8, and that is a much bigger effect in D&D than the 2d6 is in Pathfinder.
That's true. The basic attack, though, of the of the Solar in Pathfinder 2 hits much, much harder.
Right.
But
But it's
that's
in
again,
line.
that's based on the system. That's based on
Yeah.
the system.
Yeah.
So overall, Solar will probably do more for a higher percentage of your hit points in Pathfinder in D&D than it will in Pathfinder, which is another reason why, again, comparatively for their CRs, we think that the Solar in D&D might be a little bit more in line.
Yes.
They're both good. D&D one is just a little bit better.
Yes.
So,
And I think that makes only the second creature in D&D that we thought was better than Pathfinder.
I think it's the
out of
second
all
one we
the ones
agreed
done.
on. Third or fourth that I
Yeah.
think one of us thought was better.
Right.
Either way, let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you fought a Solar, fought with a Solar. Let us know if you think the Solar is balanced, overpowered, underpowered, anything like that.
Yeah. And please like or dislike, but tell us why so we can improve. And definitely subscribe. This is Boris.
And I'm Jonathan from Boredom Sated. I hope you guys had fun. We'll see you guys next time, and have a good day.
Yep. Bye.